Welcome to Canon Wired Continuing Conversations. We're discussing the general theme of work. I'd like to welcome Joshua Apple to this segment of our conversation. Good to have you here. And I'd like to kick off with a question. We're talking about academics and work. And I understand that you were homeschooled and that you took a break from academic life in order to do what?
In order to build a house with my father. We took about 2 years to build our home, and that was pretty much all the work we did for those 2 years.
So 2-year full-time job,
Full-time job.
in between high school
Right.
and then college.
I was 16 years old when we started.
Okay. And what was the besides getting a house out of the deal?
Right.
What's the profit? Well, the house is the profit, but was there any personal profit, work ethic profit, academic profit that you found?
That's an excellent question, and I think I've grown in my appreciation of those years. The older I've gotten, the more I've had sort of a chance to reflect over the course of my life and of my education. I don't think I understood then, or even in the immediate sort of following that time, how important those years were to me, particularly when I went to college and started in academics. And I would say that it affected me. There was lots of wonderful ways that it affected me, I'm sure. But in terms of addressing academics, one of the things that I think it had to do for me, which was so important, was teach me a sort of almost unconscious approach to work, that led me not to be an academic. I realized as I got into grad school that I wasn't a lot alike a lot of the academics I studied with, and it confused me for a while trying to figure out sort of what was the difference. I think some of the most profound differences came from the fact that I was ruined, if you will,
by sweat.
By sweat, exactly, and
Ruined by sweat.
and had the opportunity to work with my hands in such a way that, for me, academics were never something divorced from an engagement with life, with everyday realities. And swinging a hammer doesn't seem like an academic enterprise, but I think that's only because we've given into certain myths about what academic work is. There's more influence perhaps by the history of Western philosophy than we have by sort of a biblical Hebraic understanding of what work really is all about.
I had a similar experience when I graduated from high school. I went into the Navy just under 4 years, and I've thanked the Lord for, if I'd gone straight to college from high school, it would have been a disaster, I think, because I had an awful lot to learn about life, work, that sort of thing. And when my son was in high school, he was in a Christian school, but as he was going through high school, we built our house together, and it was the same sort of thing. Nancy says it was the shop class that the two of them never had.
Sure.
Yes,
exactly.
So it's a lot of labor. Nate found out years later about the existence of nail guns, and gave me a good deal of grief about it. Why did we not use nail guns? So do you think the rabbis, the Apostle Paul famously was a tent maker. He had a trade that he was skilled in working with his hands, but that was a requirement of rabbinical seminaries.
Yes.
You had to have a useful trade, working with your hands, and be learned in theology. Do you think that they were onto something there?
Well, they were onto something if the protection of civilization is something worth protecting. Because as I look at it, the more I've seen and thought about sort of the history of philosophy and the way the intellectual tradition has often gone, the people we want to trust the least, it seems, are often the people least engaged with the world that God's made. It's easy, the farther you get away from creation, the more it is to get things desperately wrong in ways that it seems almost hard to believe that it could get that wrong.
Right.
I remember looking through Paul Johnson's Intellectuals at one point, and
Yes.
that sort of is a testament to that kind of person, a person who can get things so badly wrong in terms of playing it forward in life, but yet is known famously down through the centuries for the books that they've written, and those connections aren't made.
So an intellectual is someone who makes no mistakes except for the very biggest ones.
Exactly, right. And that's the way Johnson argues that we should never let intellectuals have any meaningful role, at least in terms of the halls of power or anything like that, because they have such a poor track record of stewarding people and stewarding the things that we really care about.
Right. So you would be entirely in favor of an intelligent wedding of intellectual labor labor with your hands.
Absolutely. I mean, if I can put it this way, one more thing, sort of reflecting back on that time. One of the things that I've come to really value about that is that my father played a very instrumental role in my life during that time in my life. Mm-hmm. I got to see a side of my father that I'd never seen before, which is his sort of, he's really a polymath when it comes to dealing with all kinds of practical sorts of problems. He'd never built anything of the size of a house, but I remember when it came to the time to put our concrete block up for our basement, he closed the book after he'd been reading about it and said, okay, guys, we're going to lay this block. And there we went. And we did everything, I think, but put the insulation in our house. Plumbing, electrical. My father designed a whole electrical system. I came to appreciate the gifts that my father had. He kind of, during that period of my life, grew to be, I realized later, the man that I compared everyone else to in terms of getting to see and understand that he was not just a wise man in the wisdom of the scriptures, but that influenced in every part of his skill set in his relation with the rest of the world.
Like I'm fond of saying, theology comes at your fingertips,
right.
And that's what's happening.
Right.
It's a full embodied,
right.
incarnational approach to these things.
So I like to say that that was an education in becoming like my father, and to me, that's that. If Jesus says that we become like our teachers, then those kinds of experiences are some of the very best we can possibly have.
My son, building the house with me, learned that I was not only a Bible teacher, but also a bender of nails.
Yeah, there you are.